Hello, and welcome to Good News Rhode Island, the show about Rhode Island and the people and places and events that make Rhode Island a great place to live, that build our communities. Recently, pundits have been saying we need to talk about positive things that are happening in Rhode Island. But we're just beginning today on our 6th season here at Good News Rhode Island. We meet on Wednesday mornings. All of us are volunteers, and we film this show because we think there are good things, good people, good events happening in Rhode Island, and we're not sure anybody knows them because they're normally not news. So we have what we call Good News Rhode Island, meaning it's the news that you all want to hear in your own neighborhoods. It's the news of someone helping someone else, or some organization putting on an event that everybody wants for families, for elderly. It's the news about things that are happening that sometimes are behind the scenes, but really are on the front of our minds. So today we start a new season. If you like our shows, we hope that you'll write to us at goodnewsri@gmail.com. We also hope that you will look for our shows on YouTube, because every show is on YouTube in full after it has aired on either Channel 13, which is statewide, or Channel 18, which is Providence. So we hope that you will watch the show, that you will send us ideas about who you think is doing something wonderful in your area, and also that you will tell others to watch YouTube and the shows that we have already filmed so far. We talk basically about medicine, music, science, academia, arts, poetry, all kinds of things have happened here for children and for adults. So we hope that you will enjoy this season. Happy 6th season, Good News Rhode Island. And it's fitting that today we would start our show talking about veterans, because none of us would be here without the sacrifice of the veterans that we have had in our past and today as well. Veterans are still coming back from the front. Veterans are still coming back looking for help. And sometimes our government doesn't provide all the services that are needed, and therefore other agencies are formed by well-meaning people who want to help out, who see a need and step up to the plate, who are altruistic, who take their concerns to their actions as well. And so today we are going to interview Tony DeQuattro, who is the chairman and president of Operation Stand Down here in Rhode Island. And he is here with us with a veteran named Paul
Landry.
Landry. And Paul is here as a veteran who has been on the front and come back and used the services of Operation Stand Down. So I want to welcome you here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
You, a long time ago, came back from Vietnam, and you decided maybe there wasn't enough going on to help people immediately as they came off, I assume, the plane or the ship or whatever, into the harbor here in Rhode Island.
Well, first of all, I'm a Marine Corps veteran of the Vietnam era, and it wasn't when we came back. We started in 1993. Okay, because back in 1993, when I saw that there was too many Vietnam veterans on the street, the government wasn't taking care of them. You got to remember something, the Vietnam vets came back, it wasn't conducive to them when they did come back, because all they did was spit on them and call them baby killers and everything else. It was a whole different situation. And the government just didn't care. They weren't taking care of them. The VA system was terrible. They had rats in the hospitals and everything else. I mean, some of the vets had to actually feed the rats in the VA hospital so they wouldn't bite them. And this is the reason why we started it. Myself and 2 other Vietnam veterans started the organization because we got tired of seeing our brothers and sisters on the street.
So your work was to first take them off the street and to hope that you would find housing.
Well, our primary goal is housing first, because if they don't have a roof over their head, you can't do anything else with them, because it becomes a matter of survival. They go from sleeping in the street to soup kitchen to soup kitchen to get their meals, and then the routine starts all over again the next day. So they don't have time to go file a claim, to go make sure that their health is in good thing by going to the VA hospital or by going to any hospital. They don't have time to go look for an apartment or anything else, because all they are is on survival mode.
Okay, let's step back for a minute. Children 18 years old are just learning to make the kinds of relationships that build long-term relationships in their families. They're, up to that time, they're very, very focused on themselves. Finally, around 18, 16, they start to look out and notice there's a world around them. And so when somebody doesn't know what they want to do a lot of times, or somebody has this sense that their family has been in the military and they need to do this for their country, they volunteer or they enlist. And as they enlist, they are learning a whole new kind of life. And that kind of life is that they're going to be in very close quarters with a lot of people. They're going to be transported to places where they've never even thought about going. They're going to be in situations inside of ships or inside of planes or inside of planes that are having them anyway, they're going to be in very different situations. And so therefore, they have to learn very quickly. It's like an intensive program, I would assume. And so these kids who have just now learned how to love, how to be part of a family, are being put in a new kind of very large, systematized family. And so they're trying to learn how to live, how to be themselves, and they're being acclimatized to something that is very different from their home life. And they come into the theater or into conflict, and they have been trained, but it's nothing like what their training was, I assume.
You can go through all the training in the world. The harshest reality is when somebody starts shooting at you. All right? And you're seeing your friends get blown up, and you're seeing the horrors of war. Nobody can understand the horrors of war unless they've seen it. The people who go to war do not come back the same people that went, and that's what everybody expects for them to do, is come back the same person that left. And that's absolutely impossible. It doesn't happen. Your whole perspective on things, your whole perspective on life changes.
Okay, that's what I've always assumed. And so when you see a veteran, you see someone who has been to, it's not another world, but it is indeed so different from life in Rhode Island, for example, that they are having to then readjust to life just by not having the noise of war or the terror of war or the hunger of war or the discomfort of war on their bodies. They're having to react to normal circumstances that they have almost forgotten.
That's the problem. When they return, they've come back to a life that they have trouble adjusting to. They have trouble adjusting back to a civilian life because, one, with this new conflicts that we've got going on, these kids are coming back with a different problem than a lot of the previous veterans, which is adrenaline rush. They constantly want that adrenaline rush. It's like almost being a junkie on your own adrenaline. And they constantly want that adrenaline. That's why they buy the fast cars, they buy the motorcycles, they do crazy things. And that's why a lot of them end up killing themselves. And when they're killing themselves at a rate of 23 a day.
In Rhode Island?
No, and then throughout the country.
Throughout the country, 23 veterans a day die from...
their own hand.
You mean suicide?
Suicide, right. they can't adjust and they can't cope.
That's pretty shocking, isn't it?
That's the highest suicide rate in any conflict.
So they're coming back wanting some kind of rush that they're not getting because the conflict's over and they're in a world where there's not a lot of stress.
Well, the difference with these conflicts and the past conflicts is the past you only went once. These conflicts, they're sending these kids 2 and 3 times to 2 different theaters, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. And it's too overwhelming to serve that many times in a combat theater.
Okay, and that's because we don't have the draft any longer. And so they're sending the same people that volunteered once, they're sending them again. And
Absolutely.
so it's the lack of the draft.
Well, it's the actual lack of numbers in the military because of cutbacks and everything else.
Okay. Okay. Paul, what was your experience? Were you in Vietnam?
Yes.
And you came back from being in Vietnam for how many years?
14 months.
So 14 months. And you saw direct action?
Some.
Some action. And when you came back, what happened?
When I came back, basically, nobody wanted to hear it. Anything I wanted to say. And so I didn't really say much.
Your family was glad to see you.
Most of them.
Okay, and they understood that you'd been in conflict.
Yes.
But they didn't understand what that meant to you.
Well, the ones who had been in the military did.
Okay, and you were by that time 22 or 23?
No, I went in very young. I went in at 17.
Okay, so you came back at 20.
20, yeah.
Okay, so you were still a very young man.
Yeah.
And yet you had seen the world and the worst of the world in a way.
You could say that, yeah.
And so when you were here, you went to your own house,
Yeah.
your mother and father's house.
Right.
And what happened?
When you come back, you have to find ways to adjust. As a Vietnam veteran, we didn't deal much with the system because the system didn't deal with us. In other words, like the VA system that Tony's talking about, never went to the VA hospital for years, Vietnam veterans. I didn't. And then when we did, it was like, oh, you're a Vietnam veteran. You're not a, you were in a bad war. You did things bad, where people in other wars before that, I guess they were looked at as people who were in a good war.
Okay, so they were more coming back as heroes.
Exactly.
And you were just coming back as people who'd been to a bad war.
Piece of meat.
Yeah. Okay, so over and over again, you felt that you weren't valued and that your offering of your life wasn't valued by the country.
That's correct.
And so were you able to find a job?
Not for a while, didn't want one.
Okay, you just wanted to rest.
I went in the woods. I bought a car, went in the woods and went fishing. It was great therapy.
Well, that's probably a good idea, watching
sure
the
is.
water, watching the fish.
That's right.
Okay, and so you became a solo person.
Basically, for quite a while, yeah.
You lived alone.
Yeah.
And how did you come into contact with Operation Stand Down?
I was this close to homelessness. I was living in a trailer and in a trailer park, and I was about ready to be put out of there by the owner, and I saw an ad for Stand Down, which I had never heard of. As a
Interesting.
As a Vietnam veteran, in my case, who just went away from the system, I didn't even I had no idea that there were people like Stand Down who would help me, because I had never heard of them. And so I saw the ad for Stand Down, It was a poster, it was in South County at a bowling alley, as I remember. And I saw the ad for Stand Down, which Stand Down has a 3-day event at Diamond Hill State Park where veterans can go there. And that's how I was made aware of Stand Down. And I contacted the number that was on the poster for Stand Down, and it went on from there. And that's how I became aware of Stand Down.
Okay, and now you're helping with Stand Down, is that right?
I guess I'm helping with them today, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what you offer first is you interview the person who comes back, and often it's children. It's still young men, 20 to 28 years. You were 20, 28 years. I consider that still young adult. They come back. They've had these terrible experiences. They don't relate to the life around them. Going shopping or even seeing their kids, I imagine, would be a very difficult adjustment. And so they come back, and people want to go to the woods and fish. And you offer them housing. How do you do that?
All right. What Paul's talking about, before we even had the housing, we had a 3-day weekend, which we do every year, which is called Operation Stand Down. And we bus in veterans, homeless veterans from all over the state. Okay, the first Stand Down we had back in 1992, we had 40 veterans. This year's Stand Down, there was 503.
503 veterans have come back in the last few years.
And there's some older ones too.
Okay, and they're homeless.
Right. They're homeless or about to become homeless, or they have some kind of severe need.
Okay, they can't maintain a house.
Right. And
Okay.
so we come into the fold. We can do one of two things. Paul lives with us in one of our facilities in Johnston. We house right now 56 vets. We also have a grant which we can pay the security deposit and the first month's rent, and we can pay up to 9 months' rent for them. So this here is added to our housing that we can put them into some.
Okay, so how many total people of those 500 are you taking care of?
We take care of all of them when he goes back to the street, unless they really want them.
And it has to be said that some people do want to live on the street, but that's very, very rare.
And most of them have severe mental illness.
Okay, so you come back and you have, you offer counseling as well. You find counseling for people because even the most normal person is going to need to talk through some of the experiences that they have had.
One of the things that the VA does, one of the best things that they do, which is not related to the hospital, it's called the Vet Center, which is in Warwick, which handles the combat vet counselors who handle nothing but PTSD and people with traumatic brain injury. Because traumatic brain injury and PTSD are almost the same. The only problem with traumatic brain injury is that there's a scar on the brain because of an IED exploding or whatever happened. But the symptoms are almost the same. And these counselors, as far as I'm concerned, at the Vet Center are absolutely great. They do a great job. And that's, and the other thing that the VA does is prosthetics. They're a world leader in prosthetics. So, I mean, I down the VA, but them are the two things they do right. The hospitals, they don't do right. They should just close them and give everybody a Blue Cross card.
Okay, that's, to me, is a new idea, the idea that veterans should get a Blue Cross card instead of doing anything with the Veterans Hospital. That's very interesting. It probably would be easier for everyone. But anyway, I'm sure I'm saying something I shouldn't. So
I do that all the time.
Okay. Now, people also come back while they're in the trenches, while they're so fearful, while they're under so much pressure, they begin taking drugs or they begin using alcohol. And so people come back who normally would not have been addicted, and they are addicted.
What happens is when they come back, it usually takes anywhere from 9 months to a year for everything to start multiplying on their life. Because when they come back, they have a healthy paycheck in there. hand because of combat pay. So they come back, they buy a new car, they start drinking, they want that adrenaline rush, so they do crazy things. They sometimes end up on drugs. It's a Band-Aid. In other words, it's self-medicating is what they're doing. They're trying to hide and get rid of the pain, the things that they saw and did, and they're self-medicating themselves.
And if they didn't have that paycheck when they came out, but if that was given out 6 months later, they might have had a chance to stabilize a little bit first before they got that.
No, because
No.
they would start right off the bat then, because then they have nothing. In other words,
Okay. So they really need that. But substance abuse then is treated through your program.
we don't treat substance abuse, but we will find the vehicle and the programs to put them in for substance abuse.
Okay, and are there many in Rhode Island?
There's many in Rhode Island. We send a lot out of state to Northampton and to Brockton. We have Phoenix, which we cooperate with. We have a memorandum of understanding with them, and they help us out, and we also work with the state.
Okay, when you had that stand-down day, and you had 534 people coming or whatever, you talked to all of them and found out what they needed. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so you then try to help them find jobs. What kind of training have people had that would help them to find a job? Did you find a job, Paul?
Not when I first came back, no.
But then you did find one.
Yeah.
What kind of jobs do people find?
The problem is when they come back, a lot of their training doesn't meet civilian job
There's no-
specifications,
right.
which it should, because you got medics that come back automatically. These guys should be EMTs. Some of them are so good that they should automatically be nurses, and we're working on a vehicle now to help them transition into these things right away, so that they don't have to go through all the rigmarole. I mean, a guy that treats gunshot wounds and somebody that's been blown up and everything else knows a heck of a lot more than somebody riding on an ambulance.
Yep. It's a great idea. So are you talking to legislators about this kind of thing?
We are working with the governor, and we're working with the legislators. I spoke to Governor Raimondo. I spoke to the Speaker of the House. We are trying to cut down on the regulations to get them transitioned into these kind of fields. You know, there's a whole bunch of different fields like that. I mean, you know, you're talking guys that were on ships that are excellent plumbers and steam fitters. In other words, instead of going through the apprentice program and all that, I mean, these guys know what they're doing, so get them into these programs, and this is what we're doing. We're working with the laborers right now on the vets getting an apprenticeship program, which is a short-term apprenticeship program to work with the laborers, just to get them acclimated to what we do in civilian life compared to what it's done and thing. But it's starting to come together, and this was one of my goals back in 23 years ago. And the other goal is that one of these days we're going to have a complex where we can actually bring vets in and train them in the fields of plumbing, carpentry, electricity, whatever, computer programming.
So New England Tech or whatever the tech schools here don't help, or they're not going to give free tuition?
They're not going to give free tuition. It's all about the money. It's, you know, that's the problem, and it's, people don't realize that these people put their lives on the line so that they could live the lives they live in this country. And, you know, they should all take a trip to some of these backward countries and see how these people live and see where these guys actually fought, and then they'd understand.
You try to find them other benefits as well. When you first have them in housing, they probably still need food and clothing.
And we have a food bank and we have a clothing bank.
And this is just for veterans.
Right.
And how do people help you? Could I give you boxes of food, for example?
People bring us food, canned food, you know, non-perishable items. We have freezers where we have meats to give them, you know, hot dogs, hamburgers, or whatever, chicken, things like that. We do everything we can to make sure that they get some kind of a balanced meal. And they come and they pick out what they want, and they leave. I mean, there's no charge for it or anything
Okay,
else.
they have cooking lessons or?
No, we don't have cooking lessons. That's something that we work with them once they get into the places.
Okay. And you say people come to you. Is that on Broadway in Newport?
No, Broadway in Newport is one of our satellite offices. Our main headquarters is at 1010 Hartford Avenue in Johnston.
Okay, so if you go to 1010 Hartford Avenue in Johnston, if you are a veteran and you have some concerns or needs, then Operation Stand Down will help you to find your initial needs and then talk with you about other needs that you may be having.
Yes, and we do that 24/7. And when I was talking to you about the stand down that we do for 3 days, is not only do we bring all the vets there, but we bring all the services there. So we have the VA hospital there, we have employment there, we have lawyers there for them because a lot of these guys have got Mickey Mouse beefs that can be cleared up right away. The courts come in and clear them up. We got people with traffic violations that because they're homeless, they don't have time to go to court. They missed their court thing, they lost their license, they this, that. Because of the situations they were in, we get all that stuff taken care of. You name it, we've got it at Stand Down.
Okay, Paul, if you were to say anything to a veteran coming back, say they're 20 years old like you were, what would you tell them that you have learned in the time that you've been back now?
Well, I would tell them immediately that they should go to Stand Down if they need services, because there's no one else I know that would provide those kind of services that they would need. So that would be the thing I would tell them.
Okay. And are veterans helping you with talking to the governor and the legislature, or do you have other people supporting you just
Yes.
like you're supporting?
We have veterans, all the veterans organizations, veterans motorcycle clubs, we've got, all kinds of veterans organizations are backing us up. If I needed to call for a demonstration at the State House, I could guarantee I would have 1,000 people there with like that.
Okay. So but you are negotiating, you are advocating, you are taking the front lines again.
Right.
As a group, the Operation Stand Down is. Well, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for all that you're doing for the vets that those of us that aren't in that world don't know about. I hope that there are ways that we can help. You need food, you need clothing, but basically you need human kindness more than anything, it sounds like.
We also need people to donate money because the money that we use, 100% of it that's donated to us goes back to the veterans because all our staff is paid with grants. And right at this time of year, we need money for utility purposes, heating and electric, because a lot of vets end up getting their utilities shut off.
Okay, and that money goes to Broadway in Newport or to
1010 Hartford Avenue in Johnston.
Hartford Avenue in
Broadway in
Johnston.
Newport is a satellite office. People who live in the islands can go there for help. We have one in West Warwick, where they can go there for help. And we have an office in Westerly that they can go there for help.
Okay, and the phone number,
401-383-4730.
and that will get all the offices,
That's
and you
right.
get to the person that's the closest to you, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, well, and you have a website, I assume,
Yes, we do.
and it's Operation Stand Down, OSDRI.
OSDRI.
Okay, OSDRI.org. Thank you for watching Good News Rhode Island. There really are people who are putting themselves on the line for our veterans who have put themselves on the line. And I want to thank you, both Paul and Tony, for all that you're doing, all that you dream of for those who've helped us so much. And thanks to the veterans. Thank you for watching. We hope that there's good news in your neighborhood. I'm sure there are veterans in your neighborhood. Reach out to them. Thank you.